What is up, podheads? Episode 112, room 112, where the players dwell, right here, coming at you in your ear holes right now. I am joined, as always, by Anthony and Nate. How you boys doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. I sped here. I made it. No, I was ready. This time I was ready.
You had the day off, bro. Don't lie to the fans. Don't lie to the podheads.
Yeah, ready to rock.
One thing I love about some of these, like, I'll call them like niche references, some of these deep cut stuff, is it does age us, and it does kind of give a glimpse into the range. Like, if you know Room 112 with a play as well, like, that's an if you know moment, and we'll leave it up to you to figure it out.
Cupid doesn't lie, Twan, but you won't know unless you give it a try.
And you know what I was thinking? Actually, we haven't done this in a while. Is that intro music that you just heard? Is what's the story behind that, Tone? We haven't done this in a while.
It's amazing you ask us. This is what we call nerdvoyance, man. I watched that last night. No, we had friends, Donnie Golden and Nomar Slevik. We commissioned them, fame and notoriety, to make our intro music. So those guys, Nomar Slevik, go check out Slevik. He's an author. He's a musician. And Donnie Golden he's Donnie Golden. I'll leave it at that. And those guys, they made our intro music. It's ours. It's our thing. It sounds like us. I'm so happy we have it because we get to use it whenever we want to. But man, good call.
I mean, that's not even the best part, though. Where'd the sound come from?
Oh, that American Idol guitar from 15 years ago? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, yeah. The Happy Meal
McDonald's toy. Yeah, McDonald's Happy Meal toy.
That
I was going to say McDonald's toy.
is right from a McDonald's toy. Like, that's not, Fender Strat. That's a American Idol toy that these guys just worked their magic with.
They did. Yeah, add a
There's
couple
only one
boom
note,
baps.
too. There's only one note there, guys.
Yeah, it's like a thrift store find. Like, this is all I got. The fucking McDonald's toy guitar. Let's use it.
Yeah, that if you want to hear that, that's on our YouTube page. There's the intro music and how it behind the intro music, I think is what we called it. That's back there. Go check out Podioslave podcast on YouTube, and it's there, and you can listen to it. It's about 20 minutes. It's fun. Those guys are a good time.
All right, guys, on the docket for tonight, we just wrapped up a fun conversation with Teebs, Mike, and Brian. They are the guitarist, vocalist, and bassist, respectively, of the Philly, Jersey-based indie rock band Out of Service. They have an album coming out here in the next month on June 3rd on Enjoy the Ride Records. The album is called The Ground Beneath Me. And we had a fun conversation with those guys. We talked about kind of their come up, the creative process, them signing to Enjoy the Ride, and the writing process with the new album coming out. Some of the features, they get some features. I'm not going to give them away. You're going to have to listen here in the episode. And I think we're going to get into that right now with the Out of Service guys.
Hey everybody, Tony here. If you like what you hear, go back and check out some of our other interviews. We've had Peanut from 311, we've had Frank Turner, we had Benny Horowitz, we recently also had Vinny Caruana of The Movie Life, and many others back there. There's a bunch of really cool conversations, 2+ years of pods back there of us just nerding out and enjoying ourselves. So check us out. Go to podioslave.com for all things nerdery. Thanks.
This life's the only
We are here with Out of Service. We have Teebs, Brian, and Mike. How you guys doing tonight?
Hey, I'm Teebs.
Good.
Two things. This is the third time we've had 6 people on a podcast, which is kind of wild. We're 3/4 or 2/3 of the way to the Supreme Court. But hey, why not? We figured we'd have a little fun with you guys, talk a little bit about the new record, all that fun stuff. And the other thing is the way we kind of found you guys is a little bit more modern, right? We were on Instagram talking back and forth there about Taking Back Sunday and some other stuff, and you guys have a song with John Nolan, and yeah, we were just, it's a new way to find a band and make friends in 2022, and here we are now chatting with you guys about your music.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I forget. I think you guys had thrown up a Taking Back Sunday hashtag. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I looked into you guys, and you had some really cool features, like some other, big Long Island type artists and things like that. And I was thinking, like, well, our label is in Long Island, and we just used John Nolan on a song. So I reached out to you guys, and here we are.
So let's talk about you guys. So Out of Service, you guys are based out of what, Philly, Jersey area. How long?
Yep,
how long?
South Jersey.
South Jersey. I love that you're very stern with that, because if anyone meant we're from Maine, if anyone's like, "Oh, you're from Northern Maine," it's like, nah, no way, dude. Southern Maine.
That's Canada, actually.
That's Canada. So how did you guys form? How long have you guys been a band? How did you guys form? Like, tell us a story, because our listeners may or may not know.
I'll start a little bit. So back in about 2002, me and the bass player Brian and Kenny, me and Brian went to high school, and Kenny was homeschooled, but we started a punk band, and we decided to name ourselves Out of Service. So that's where the name comes from. And we played together for about a year as a trio. And then Mike, our singer, joined probably like 2003.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah, Teebs was our singer before that. That was interesting.
Yeah. So we were your typical high school band that played some power chords and tried to play as fast as we possibly could, and made a lot of noise. So then we did that for a while, and then we probably played till 2006, and then we took a very long hiatus. And so then 2016, I kind of hopped on Facebook. I noticed that we were all kind of living in the area again, and I was like, what if we reform the band with like the original lineup? And it was kind of an interesting thing, because we kind of started off like, yeah, let's do it. It'll be like a hobby, and it's kind of snowballed from there.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, so technically the band is 20 years old this year.
Wow.
But not really.
But not really. Yeah.
Like we consider our start with that EP from 2017, like, the stuff we did in high school is stuff you did in high school.
Did anything make it from that early iteration of the band to today? Is there anything that you're still using? There maybe a song or a riff or something that you guys...
We do play one song occasionally at hometown shows. It's called At More Than One Expense. It was probably our best song from high school, and we've thrown out once or twice.
We've played it a couple times. One time we had another drummer in high school for a little while, and college. He and I went to Temple together, and he was back from California for like a weekend, and he showed up at one of our shows, and that was the only song he still knew how to play. So
nice.
we brought him up on stage and played that. And that was pretty wild.
Nice.
And then our current drummer screamed.
Yes. Yeah, there was some screaming back then.
Yeah.
So who are you listening to back then?
Probably Emery, Taking Back Sunday. Those types of groups that all the ones we just collabed with.
The same ones that we're getting as features now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was pretty much, I think we all kind of came in through pop punk, and then started kind of getting into the, third wave emo, with some of this, and then post hardcore with Under Oath and things like that. So it was probably a combination of all of that stuff, a little Census Fail, Little Silverstein, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Very cool. One thing I want to ask here as well is, over time, you guys eventually got signed. We were actually doing some homework earlier, and you got signed to Enjoy the Ride Records, which is kind of a unique label. They do a lot of like re-releases and movie soundtracks, things like that. It's I think it would be proper to say it's a nerds label. We're all nerds here, so kind of unique presses. So how did that come about?
So Enjoy the Ride, as you just said, they do a lot of re-releases, a lot of, mostly doing vinyl. And at one time, like a decade ago, Ross, who runs the label, signed the band Harvard, which, they're not really making music anymore, but he still puts their stuff out. And so that was the only other original band that I'm aware of that they ever signed. And, these days it's really important, obviously, for bands to get their music out there, to kind of do some marketing through social media. And Teebs is kind of a beast when it comes to that. And he's constantly messaging people and getting our music out there. And just through, postings about vinyl and different things like that, Teebs came across Enjoy the Ride. DMs started flowing, and a few months later we were inking a deal. So it happened quickly, and it was kind of wild and something that I really didn't expect to actually happen for us. But there was crazy times during the pandemic, and it really gave us the opportunity to drill down and work on new music and put ourselves out there. So
yeah,
Nice.
we used a 6-song demo to kind of shop to labels for our new album, and like that kind of felt old school in a way. Like we even, obviously we've put out like proper records before, our last album Burden that we're still super proud of, and even the album Morning that we like a lot. But we made this demo, and it was like, it felt like, kind of felt like old school. Like we have this demo of 5 songs that we're sending to people, and he heard the demos and he really loved the direction that we were going in, and then he checked out our 2019 album, and he loved that one as well. And he's like, I've always wanted to kind of dip my toes back into signing original band. So it made a lot of sense actually that we kind of came along and we kind of fit the type of band that he wants to sign. So it was kind of
Nice.
like the right place, right time thing.
Yeah, it sounds like it's mutually beneficial.
we ended up demoing all of the songs that are on the album and then some. And we're going to actually be doing a Patreon for the album that's going to launch when the album launches. And every month we're going to be doing different things, offering, different perks to people who sign up. And one of them is going to be, to give out the demo versions of those songs and kind of see how they evolved into the actual album. So
Nice.
we're pretty
That's
excited about that.
That's the type of stuff that the three of us love. We call that nerdery. I want to be a fan of a band, and they're going to give me something cool like that to be part of their Patreon or whatever. Like that's hook, line, and sinker for people like us.
Yeah, I mean, we've got it kind of planned out, and we're pretty excited about getting the content done. But we're doing the demo versions, maybe some live versions, an acoustic version of every song, and then every month we're going to do a podcast that drills down into the meaning behind each song.
Nice.
So it should be it's going to be an 11-month project, and it should be a pretty cool thing for us. So, and hopefully people will eat it up.
So I'm curious, what drew you guys to Enjoy the Ride? Like obviously the Harvard connection, you knew they put out other bands, but I mean, I checked out we'll call it the roster of all the re-releases, and it's stuff that speaks to us. I mean, we're mid to late 30s, and it's like, well, I want a Toe Jam and Earl cassette, like you guys connect with that part of it?
Well, I'm a vinyl freak myself, so I had bought records from Enjoy the Ride myself, and actually
Nice.
I
That's
bought a Hussey record who Nathan Hussey produced our record and mixed it from them. So there was some like, oh, well, he worked with Nate. So then I talked to Nate about him and said, yeah, Ross was cool or whatever, So there was just a lot of like, I don't know how to explain it, but, he was also like, he had cited a lot of influences in our conversations that were, he was looking for a band that kind of was influenced by the same type of stuff we were. And it just really was a great fit that way. But yeah, the nerd part of it is definitely interesting. It's like, yeah, we share a label with like the Ren and Stimpy soundtrack and
that's awesome.
Clifford the Big Red Dog vinyl. It's pretty cool though.
It speaks to us, as Anthony said. It's right up our alley, and we do a Sunday Spins thing every week on our Instagram and Twitter. We're constantly showcasing the collection because we're vinyl nerds too.
Yeah, there's a lot of elements to that too as well, because getting vinyl pressed right now is a stretch. Like it's hard to do. Yeah. So actually there's a unique benefit to signing to the label, because you have the infrastructure to actually get a record pressed in the first place, because the supply chain, and I mean Third Man Records is backed up like 2 years, something like that. So it's pretty cool.
We had to put our vinyl order in. It was many months ago now that it was put in, and we got word today that our vinyl should be in hand, in May.
Nice.
In hand, meaning in the label's hand, and then that way they can be shipped out when it launches. But it was a little scary at a time, because we were trying to set a release date, and we didn't want there to be a delay from the release date to the release of the vinyl, especially on a label that's so, vinyl heavy, right? They're very, obviously that's their big thing. So we wanted to make sure we had it available for everyone, but luckily stuff's coming in now. So
it's a tricky thing to juggle, like units. Like how many units do you even order? You know what I mean? I mean, I know you have the monthly Spotify list.
I don't know. We leave that to Ross.
Yeah, you can engage your fan base, but that's a dance. Yeah, leave that to the label.
We have what, 4 total variants if you count the test press. So we're gonna have like a test press, and then there's like a really cool it's like a red, white, and black swirl
pinwheel thing.
Well, I'm talking about that swirl one. There's the swirl one, and then there is like it's like a button, red and black button vinyl. That's the third one, and then there's clear.
And then there's also going to be a version with a special edition jacket as well. So different stuff for folks who like to collect things.
So, yes, that's clear, and then we have cassette as well, and the cassette came out really cool.
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
it's like a clear red cassette, and it just came out looking really neat.
I can tell you guys are excited about that aspect of it too, like being able to come up with these different variants and turning into.
Well, we tried to we did do Burden on vinyl, but we were working on our own budget, which was basically nothing, and it was ordering direct. And so basically, what we did was we took pre-orders and ordered exactly the number of vinyls that we got for pre-orders, basically, and then maybe a couple more for shows. And so it's exciting to us to be able to have inventory and to be able to sell over time. I mean, the number of messages we get of, when are you going to repress Burden? When are you going to, when are you going to press Morning, which we've never done? It's just, it's an opportunity that we didn't have before. So
yeah, that's cool.
So you signed to Enjoy the Ride. At what point, let's talk timeline. Like, how long ago was this? Did you have, well, like you said, you pitched a demo to him. Once you signed, do you jump right in the studio and put an album out, or start writing for the album?
So it's funny, during the pandemic, we got very aggressive, and we had a plan to actually do a 3-album release, a triple album, and we wrote and recorded ourselves over the course of many months an entire acoustic, folky rock album, which we're sitting on right now. And then we also, that was before we even got hooked up with ETR. And then we'd started doing these demos and we're shopping it around. And then, I would say, I think we ended up officially signing in April of 2021. And we had already started to plan. I mean, we were already talking to Nathan about when he was going to come up here to produce the record. We were already shopping for studios at the time. And it just kind of fell into place at exactly the right time where, we hadn't already signed with any studio. We hadn't put any money down yet. So we were able to kind of shuffle up, or actually it didn't really take too much shuffling. I mean, we already had a plan to be recording that summer. And then it just became, well, now we got to finish this record. So we still had 2 or 3 songs left to kind of finish up. And we took care of that pretty quickly. And then it was just practice until we hit the room. So
nice. It's funny, we did sign quickly, and then it did feel like pretty quick. We were, though, booking studio time, paying for our producer, that stuff all did happen because we were in the studio in July. So, we signed in April, we finished demoing, we hit the studio in July, and then we mix August and September, and then we also mix in
remixed.
We remix again in November, and that's when the record was done in November.
So it came together pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we recorded the entire thing in 9 days.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
But like I said, I mean, I think we were more prepared this time than we had ever been on any previous project that we've worked on. And so there were things that, might have normally taken half a day that were done in an hour. It was just, we were ready.
Yep.
So it really showed how important that was.
We did a ton of pre-production. Yeah. It was just every guitar part, every bass part, every drum part, every fill, even Mike, our singer, all the harmonies, right, Mike? You had all the harmonies nailed out.
I had a notebook with them all written out. And Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
I mean, Teebs and I recorded all the scratch tracks for the entire album in this room like a month before we hit the studio, and then everyone was supposed to practice to those, for that entire month. So
just comes from experience. I mean, the first time around, you probably just maybe wouldn't know to do that, or
yeah,
or to what extent,
Yeah. Yeah, it's when it's your third album, you learn little things that like you think you could play a part, and then you turn the mic on, and it's a different
Right.
it's a different thing, you have to you kind of have to know it inside and out. So especially with that pressure of like, okay, we have 9 days to do a record, we have to do drums in this amount of days, bass in this amount of days, all the guitars in this amount of days, all the vocals, like, but and it also helped. We're close with our producer, and when we did pre-production, he would listen to demos and he'd give feedback as well. So like we were getting feedback from him, we were getting feedback from the label, we were getting feedback from some of our friends that are like close to the band or in other bands, and so all of that really helped us like really hone these songs to how you hear them today.
Nice. Yeah.
That's super rad. I'm trying to think, just on the cuff, when you're putting all this music and everything together, you're on this timeline, you're very, I don't know, tunnel vision focused on getting the music done. But what about the full on package, like the artwork, everything else? Is that also part of the diagram, or is that like, oh shit, we got to do that too? Like, fuck. Like you have a timeline for that, or is that outsourced?
So Mike so all the artwork is based on paintings that Mike has done.
Nice.
If you
Okay.
look at our last album, Burnin', was a painting that Mike did, and then also all the singles so far have been a series of paintings that Mike did, and then the album art ultimately is one of Mike's paintings, but with some text on it, which will be, that artwork will be released soon. But we actually spent a long time. I mean, we knew we were going to use some of Mike's art because we think he does great work, and we always think it's kind of special to have something that kind of ties into the music and also comes directly from one of us. And I think I don't know, Mike, I don't know how many things you painted before we ended up figuring out what the theme was going to be and kind of built on it from there. But I mean, you showed us a lot.
Yeah, so for the cover art, we weren't really jammed for time or anything like that. We still had months and months before the release. So at some point I just had started, I just decided to like, while I'm painting, I'll paint things that I can, kind of try to sell to you guys to see if you would like it for cover art. Went through a couple of weird things, and then I just had the idea for basically that vibrant red ground with like white assets that just totally, I don't know, I just felt really unique, and it felt like something we could build around. Showed it to you guys, and you guys were pretty much all on board with it. And as we got closer to the album release, I just had the idea to, what if I could paint a couple more things, like the door, or like the moon and the clouds, or the guy falling through the sky, so that we could use individual art for all the different singles. So I think it ended up coming out pretty well.
Yeah, and then you did the fairy after the song, right?
Yeah, that one came
Yeah.
later. Yep. That comes out next month. So
Mike, is that something you're doing on your own in your free time before a ton, or is that like here and there you'll paint and then like, all right, let's use this with the music too?
No, I paint pretty frequently. I picked it up about like 3-4 years ago, and man, if you could see the place that I paint, it's just like wall to wall with done finished paintings that I'll never
Nice.
get rid of.
That's awesome.
But yeah, no, so I paint pretty frequently. Just that when I knew we needed something, I just kind of started focusing on that just a little bit more.
It's great to have anything like that in-house with the band. So you get Mike, who's maybe the visual guy. You get Teebs, who's the marketer. He's selling newspapers on the street type of thing. And obviously when the label comes into play, they can take on some of that. But I mean, we can relate to that grind with a podcast. It's just us. There's no one else. So you're kind of forced into these positions. But if you have that skill set to begin with, that's just a bonus.
I think one of the reasons why Ross was interested in signing us was because we had a lot of infrastructure built in. Like he could see that we run our band, like a little business, like each person kind of has their own role. And like,
Right.
like you said, he really liked Mike's paintings, and Brian does a lot of like the graphics, like you see, when we do single graphics and stuff with these artists, that's all Brian doing that. And then like you said, he knew I was a hustler. They call me Mayor T in the chat. and we all have different skill set. And Kenny
books a lot of the shows, basically.
Kenny does book some shows, yeah,
and doesn't show up to
Yeah.
podcasts.
and he dishes up.
Oh,
Hey, Kenny,
ooh,
come on,
burn.
man.
We'll leave that one in.
We could have broken a record and had seven tracks tonight.
Oh,
And he's a coward.
You killed Kenny.
Oh man.
Oh no. Yeah, we'll leave all that. Sorry, Kenny.
But yeah, so I think that's a big part of why he was interested in us as well. I think obviously the music is a part of it, but kind of a combination of things.
And a lot of, I will say, I mean, working with ETR, I mean, we're all very hands-on. I mean, we have, I guess, bi-weekly Zoom meetings with them to kind of go through everything that everyone should be working on and promotional stuff and everything. And we're very much involved in what the marketing looks like and how it gets presented. So it's been good to work with everybody over there.
Yeah, it's like DIY, but now we have our team's a little bigger.
Yeah, you get a little bit of backing too, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, I know as Anthony said, we grind just the three of us. So if we had a little bit of backing too, man, I don't even know what we could do because it's been fun to do this and get our name out there and talk to people like you guys, and talk to people, all the interviews we have back there, and just talk to each other. Like it's you get better at it. You play music together, you get better at it, and it becomes fun to kind of share that with the world.
So you guys are in the studio. You guys have a lot of features, like John Nolan. I mean, brand name dude. Obviously, TBS. I love Stray Light Run. Like that first self-titled is all time, and even the demos. If you heard the demos, those are.
We've heard
The
that.
demo,
Yeah.
that's where that was my entry point. Yeah.
I mean
Yep,
that.
same.
Yeah, I mean we could have a whole episode on that, I think. And I saw the first show, but that's another story for another time. You get Devin and Toby from Emery, who, as you said, was an influence. And then the fall features Nathan from All Get Out in some capacity. I'm not sure if it's vocals or production, but that's a lot, I feel like, for an album. So how does that – was that a goal? Was that a natural thing? Like, how does that happen?
So on our last album, Burden, we had a feature, Madeline
Finn.
Madeline Finn, she and that kind of came about because we had met her when her band was playing at a beer festival when we were all in Cleveland, and we all just kind of struck up a conversation afterwards, and we just thought she was really great, and it was a really great experience having a feature on the album, and we thought it was cool to bring that to the table. Fast forward to when we're talking to ETR, and kind of this is before we were even officially signed with them. I mean, Ross kind of pitched the idea of like, I really want to have, some really cool features on the album. And he would throw out things like, I think we could get like John Nolan and we were like, yeah, John Nolan. Sure. Yeah, we'll get that.
Yeah.
But we had planned to do features. We were so focused on writing the music at the time. We hadn't really gotten that far into it yet. And then when it came time to really, dig in on it, Teebs had the idea to ask the Emery guys. I mean, he's, involved in a community of Emery fans and kind of had some access to them that way. And they were extremely receptive. We never thought we'd get one of them, let alone both of them.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with John Nolan. John has a history with Nathan and also a history with Ross. So we had those connections, and that helped to kind of bring him in. And, with John, we didn't write a part specifically for him. We sent him 3 demos and said, pick whichever song you want to be on. It's whatever one you want's yours. And he picked What You See. That was kind of the one we were hoping he would pick, actually. So it was really great. And we just let him go wild with that bridge and chorus at the end. And that was great. And then Nathan on the fall, he does a very, very small vocal part, but we think it adds a lot to the the calm right before that huge bridge where it blows up. And like we said, Nathan's kind of featured on the entire album, really. I mean, he produced the whole thing. He engineered the whole thing. He mixed the whole thing. There's so much of Nathan's influence that seeped its way into the music as we were recording it. So
He's kind of a fifth member, sort of. He's literally mixed everything we've done since 2017. And, he's just, we really love working with him. He helps us reach our vision. Like, he will stick with us with a mix until we're all 100% happy. And not everyone in the industry would probably go above and beyond the way he does.
That's great, because I mean, you hear the Ross Robinson stories of he's like holding your shoulder while you're screaming, and he's like trying to get it, dig that out of you. And they end up being like a fifth member of the band, sixth member of the band. So that's pretty cool.
He produced the vocals on the last album, Mike, right? And we felt like that was like kind of a start of something, right? Where you felt like maybe that pushed you.
Yeah, we
level.
definitely knew just from working with him in person on the vocals from Burden that being able to record the whole album with him in the room, we just knew that was going to make a huge difference.
Nice. Well, there's another part of the special guest too on the album that kind of parlays into touring. Whether it's a cheat code or not, I don't know. But what's next for you guys in that realm? Are you guys going to go on tour? Are you guys going to go on tour with Taking Back Sunday, stuff like that? Anything in the works? You want to drop it here?
We have some really exciting shows that were lined up here coming up. We are playing on May 21st. We're opening for Bad Luck and Dollar Signs in Philly, which is kind of a tour coming through, and we're the local support for that show, which was a really big land for us. And thanks to Dave Kiss for getting us on that one. And then we're actually doing a little Long Island stop. We're playing Looney Tunes, and then Emeryville Music Hall on what is that, Brian?
June 10th and 11th, or 11th and 12th, something like that.
Something like that. So
it's like a week after the record drops, roughly.
Yeah.
And then Philly the night before that.
Yeah, so we have that's our album release show.
Nice.
June 10th. Yeah.
And for anyone listening, Looney Tunes is actually a record store, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I only know that because I lived in New York City, and I tried to get there, but obviously in New York City you don't have a car, and to get to that record store from the city is like a 5-hour train ride, and I was like, fuck. But they always had in stores, and they always had live performances, and they were pretty badass. But I tried, but
Kevin Devine just played there.
Oh yeah.
Andy from Manchester's played there a bunch. Kevin and Andy have played there together. They've had, I'm pretty sure, like Julian Baker's played there. So like they bring in a lot of really cool bigger acts to do in store. So we're excited just to have that chance, and we're going to be videoing and recording the performance, and that might be part of the Patreon thing as well.
Nice. That's awesome.
And for anybody who's listening that can make it out to that on Long Island at Looney Tunes, it's on June 12th at I believe like 3:00 or something. It's in the afternoon, early afternoon, and we will be selling like a special edition variant of the vinyl only to people who come to that show, and then after that, I think it's only for Patreon subscribers. So,
nice.
Little cool thing for anyone who can make it out.
That's cool. I if you're like in on the ground floor with a band that you guys are coming up, you've had a couple releases, maybe you self-released, now you've got the backing of a record label, you're getting a little bit more people taking notice, to get in and go and do that. If you're close by, go to that show. I'm telling you right now, I would be there in a heartbeat if I wasn't in Maine 5-6 hours away working that Saturday, I'm sure. But like, yeah, I know, maybe I will. Maybe I'll hop on the train. But go to that show. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So the album is called The Ground Beneath Me. It comes out June 3rd of this year. Enjoy the Ride record. So if someone's never heard you, what's your pitch? I'm going to put you guys on the spot. I don't want to do the for fans of, because you can get boxed, but like, how would you describe your band?
Well,
Teebs.
You're the marketer, right?
The big thing is like dynamic alt rock is like, I think that's, which I know kind of alt rock is dynamic, but I think our big thing is like, we really love to take something quiet and blow it up, or take something loud and make it quiet. And that tends to be our signature, I think, is that we were influenced by bands that do that, like Manchester and Thrice does that really well. And like, so I think those are big things. But specifically though, for this album, I would also say, we have a lot of variety. It's not just one sound. We really wanted like our B-side of this album to feel a little different than our A-side. For instance, we wanted the B-side to have maybe some quieter moments, or maybe some kind of different sounds that we hadn't explored before as a band. So I think like the big selling point to me is just dynamics and lots of variety.
Well said. And actually, now that you say that, the album is sequenced perfectly.
I really appreciate that comment because we literally we have a band like Slack that we communicate in, and we have a channel solely dedicated to album order, and we probably thought about it for 2 months until we finally, like, we had votes, we had like secret ballot votes in order to figure out what was going to be in what order.
Rigged.
And they were a little rigged. It's
still fighting about it
votes,
right now on the Podioslave podcast. I love it.
In real time.
But you know what? When we finally did arrive on the track listing, I think we all were really pleased with it. And then there actually was a point where there were arguments about, certain songs being in certain places. And we held firm because we truly believe that the way that this album flows is the best way that these 11 songs could be played in order. So we wanted to make sure that as you're listening to it through the whole thing, your ear's never going to get tired from just being battered away at constantly, that the songs kind of go from heavy to a softer and kind of up and down. It's like a roller coaster a little bit.
You do realize that we have a Slack channel for the band is such a 2022. Like, if you said that 5 years ago, people are like, what the hell are you talking about? But no, I mean, that's the times. And we, we've heard the album, and we couldn't agree more, Nate, with what you said. Sequencing's great. Just a Shadow, to close the album with that, like, that's the only home for that song.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's a shame because a lot of times, like when you look at streaming numbers and stuff, like the closers and like the songs at the end of the record don't get played as much. And like for me, that's one of the better songs on the album. And I'm hoping that it gets to people because I do think that's a special one. It's kind of unique in a lot of ways.
We did an episode, it was a while back now, it was track one, side one, of great album openers, and we have the plan to do great album closers too. So don't sleep on album closers, people. I know your streaming numbers are listening to the first 3 songs and then you get doing something else, but go back and listen to all of it because there's some stuff on the back half of a lot of great records that you're missing out on if you don't listen to. So this one included.
Sure.
Very much.
Is the Sky Felon near the end too?
Yeah, that's right in. It's number 5.
Yeah,
it's right in the middle.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be like that's supposed to was intentionally the closer of the A side. So
there you go. I'm onto something. I sniffed that right out.
Yeah, and then and that song has a really unique vibe to it. And then we open up the B side with The Fall, which is a very straight. It's probably the most straight ahead rock song on the album. Which just came out last week as a single. But so that's kind of how we separate the two sides.
It's crazy to hear the progression or just the organization, because it's like basically you're writing a bunch of journal entries and you're like, how do we sequence these different moods over the months and make an album? It's crazy to think about. As a non-musician, I'm like, how the fuck does that work? But you explained it pretty well.
Yeah, it's just I think I always had a vision of the two sides and how I wanted them to feel. And I think like we got to a point where we had most of the track listing together, but we were like, we need a song to fit this spot, like the opener to side A. And that's kind of side B.
That's how The Fall got written.
And that's how The Fall got written, was that we were looking for, something with high energy that was kind of, we felt the record needed like one more banger basically. For lack of a better word, but we felt like it needed another banger, and that was that ended up. We actually wrote a couple, but that was the one that we heard, and we were like, the chorus sticks out to you. There's like that chorus lead guitar that I think is hooky, and the vocals and everything. So yeah, that was the one.
Well, that's smart too, because if you buy the vinyl and you want to, like, all right, I've listened to side A and B, I'm ready for the second half here. You want to be excited about putting that on because you're like, I know where this starts. Like, I'm excited to flip this over and keep going instead of like, oh, it's another kind of slow jam that I love, but like, it's better when I'm just listening to the album straight through on my phone. No, this kind of sets up the physical experience, which is obviously still big. And I mean, it's vinyl is still kicking ass, and Record Store Day just happened, and yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think this is our first album we wrote with like vinyl specifically in mind. I think me being obviously, like we said, I'm a huge vinyl head, and you can tell, I think, when you hear, a band, that they wrote the record with the vinyl sides in mind, and that the New Manchester Orchestra record, A Million Masks of God.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one where specifically you can hear the shift between side A and side B, and that was a very big influence on us.
Yeah. You're not going to get arguments from us, but I think we all ride for that rerecord and that band.
Sure.
Me especially.
And that's a good point too, with the whole vinyl in mind for writing style. I mean, you have those parameters, so you're like, it has to flow. Like, we don't have any other option. And if anything, that probably helps with a kind of a overall template. Like, this is going to be a movie soundtrack at some point. Like, we got to have it flow together, beginning, middle, and end. So I think that's kind of, I don't want to say a crutch. If anything, it's a different challenge because it has to be not perfect, but it has to flow.
Absolutely, yeah.
Actually, I would be interested, since you guys have heard the album, if you guys have a favorite track.
Yes, I honestly, track 1, I was very Devil and God hit me. I was like, man, I love the vibe of this, and it's like scratching this itch that hasn't been scratched in a while. So I was pretty excited about that, and it got me ready for the rest of the record. The Ferry, right? That's the name of that one.
Yep, comes out.
It is. Yep.
Got me excited. Got me like ready to go.
That's actually the next single, and we have a music video for that one. That Mike wrote the video, the storyboard of the video, and it is a wild ride. It's like a campy horror movie.
Nice.
So it's, we won't spoil it because it's still about a month away, but we're excited to put that out in the world.
It's definitely unique.
I'm gonna take the easy road out here and pick 3. So I took notes, and I do this with almost all albums I listen to because I'm a geek. Offshore, it had and if you don't like this comparison, we can cut this, but it had very Citizen vibes to it. I'm a Citizen fanboy, and it scratched that itch for me. Yeah. I love that song. Sky Fell In, layered vocals. Mike, your layered vocals are on point.
Thanks, man.
When our listeners listen to the album, go check out Sky Fell In. Vocals are awesome. And then closing track, Just a Shadow. I think, like we said, sequencing's great. That's a great way to close it out.
I never thought about Offshore with Citizen
having Citizen vibes,
but now that you say it, I'm like, well, yeah, of course. That's it's got that driving feel, and then even the blow up in the second verse is kind of youth era.
Yep.
Funny Citizen story. So we put out a B-sides EP right when the pandemic lockdowns began. We just felt like we had to get some new music out, and we had some stuff left over from Burden, and the song Restless Nights is the first song on that little 3-song release, and Matt Carrickus played drums on that song on the recording.
And he mixed it.
Nice. Yeah. That's awesome.
And he mixed it, yeah.
I saw you played some shows with him, but I didn't know that there was a studio connection too.
It was all done remotely, but
digital studio connection.
But we opened for him on his solo tour when he came to Philly. So it was a cool connection.
This is so crazy because I chose The Ferry and Offshore, so it's just like I'm starting to have this like real interesting revelation. Like, is this how singles are chosen? It's just like they basically just take a poll and that's what becomes a single.
Yeah. Well, Offshore is going to be probably our focus track. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but basically on release day, Spotify will push the song to release radar, and that's that's the song we're choosing to focus on.
Nice. It's either going to be that or the Sky Fell In. So we're still trying to figure that out, but
I think Ross wants Offshore. So
Offshore. Yeah, I have a feeling.
Yeah.
Well, we're all on the same page. If that means anything.
Yeah. I mean, The Ferry, when we wrote the demo, we felt like we had something special there. And, you mentioned, the Devil and God connection, and we felt like definitely it leaned into that sound a little bit. But, we also felt like we were kind of bringing our own twist to that, and I think that will definitely hit for some people who are looking for something in that vein.
Yep, definitely, I would agree.
So my kind of jokey question to close us out here is, all right, so the band existed for just under a decade. You take a hiatus. who gets the call from Teebs that's like, let's fire up the band? Like, what was your response? Like, dude, come on. Like, what? How did that go down?
Oh man. So it started with a Facebook message, like, right? I messaged all of you this long, like super long thing, right?
I can't remember, man. I had the memory of a flea.
I mean, it was. I mean, it's probably still there somewhere. But
Yeah.
my recollection is he reached out to all of us at the same time. But he probably the way our band might work sometimes though is before someone puts something out into the whole group, they test it on one of the other people first. So he probably ran it by Kenny first, if I had to guess.
I definitely had ran it by Kenny because I knew he was a yes. And Mike, we had a phone conversation, and Mike and I had not talked in like 10 years.
Yeah,
So-
there was
Yeah.
there was a rift there for sure.
Like we hadn't been like we hadn't known each other for 10 years. And I called him. I was like,
Yeah.
hey man, if we got like the band back together, would you do it? And he's like, sure.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, it had been so long. I was just like, yeah, what the hell? I miss making music.
I love that Kenny was a yes, but he's a no to coming on the podcast. Come on, Kenny.
Listen,
In Kenny's defense, we did a Zoom interview a couple weeks ago, and he was on that one. So
All right,
I think
well,
he's like,
and Mike
well,
and Mike wasn't.
and Mike
I
wasn't.
wasn't.
Oh, Mike, come
Well,
on.
we're happy we had Mike
know.
tonight too. I mean,
There you go.
So are we.
yeah, this has been a lot of fun talking to you guys about the upcoming album, which is The Ground Beneath Me, drops on June 3rd, 2022, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It'll be available on ETR's website on vinyl and every streaming service. So
And we will link all that in the show notes. So go ahead and in there real quick and check that out. We'll link out you guys' socials too. So where can they find you on social media?
Instagram at Out of Service Band, Facebook at Out of Service Band, and Twitter at Out of Service US.
that's because there's a Japanese out of service.
Oh wow.
Well, and Out of Service Band was taken.
Yes. Not
So
by
we-
them, though, I don't think.
No,
But yeah, anyway.
there it is.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks for coming on. I can speak for myself and say that anytime I get into a band, I immediately want to see see the band live. So I'm excited to catch you guys on tour.
There you go.
All right. We can't wait.
Awesome. Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Have a good night,
Yeah.
guys.
Have a good one.